Welcome to my channel. In this video I want to talk to you about abandonment of works. I want to ask you, how do you feel if something goes wrong with your current coloring? Do you feel easy to abandon it, to switch to something more interesting if you feel that you lost inspiration, that you don't enjoy the process, that despite all your efforts, in the end picture won't look nice, or you feel obliged to try to save it, to color despite all the difficulties, so to struggle but to feel obliged to finish it? The inspiration for this video I got from this book, but we will return to it in a moment. I tried to analyze all my started by abandoned pictures, and good thing is that for the person who color for such a long time as I do, I have quite small amount of totally abandoned pictures, and many of my unfinished pictures, they have small chance to be finished one day. I analyzed reasons, what prompted me to stop coloring picture, and the first reason is that the style of the book, the artist style, it's not to my taste. This happened mostly with books by Maria Trolle and by Johanna Basford. If you follow me, you probably know that both these artists, they are quite low on my favorite lists, but from time to time I see on social media some beautiful works done in books by Maria Trolle, or someone asks me to color something in Johanna Basford Ivy, for example, and with a new hope I start a new picture. I try to do something decent, but well, I think that these books, they feel my hesitation, my dislike, and there is like two sides feeling. They also dislike me, and usually when I start to color something here, it's very difficult for me to finish and to get decent result. Even if I finish, quite often when I look at the page, I feel ashamed to post it, and I simply don't enjoy the process. For example, here I probably have the biggest amount of abandoned works. Here I decided that I simply can't do anything similar to adult coloring. It was very childish. And I didn't want to do the repeated elements, which is a problem for Johanna books. And even if some starts were creative, I simply felt that it's not interesting for me. So there are a lot of abandoned pictures. For them, I definitely don't intend to return to them. Also, there is a problem of background. For me, the background is second main reason, which was the case of abandoning the page. Now, I mostly start from the background because I hate the moment if you do the main image, it's lovely, and then on the last step you mess up everything with the background. It happened to me in the beginning of my coloring journey, so now I prefer to do this most challenging or the most boring part, background first, and then enjoy the main image. You know that I'm a person who dislikes to do very complicated pencil layering, those slow movements when you build a lot of layers. Yes, in the end you can get beautiful pencil background, but you need a lot of time, a lot of patience, and unfortunately that's not about myself. Sometimes I enjoy looking at such pictures from other colorists, but when I see video where person used like 1 hour to gently covering 1 centimeter of picture, I admire their courage, their patience, but I feel like my own teeth start to ache. I simply can't do such work. I don't have such skills, unfortunately. So many times I started to do pencil background, I realized that I am dying from boredom and I abandoned them. Or sometimes because of my very quick coloring and bad layering background which I did, it looked not to my taste, like has happened with this one and with many other pictures. For example, I have such a background in Symphony of Cute Animals. Here, I don't know, something went not according to the plan. Maybe I don't like color. This one, it actually has some chances to be finished one day. Maybe I simply was so tired of after this pencil background that I totally lost inspiration to continue. It's not bad, so maybe one day I will finish it. Apart from unsuccessful ugly background, sometimes the third reason, it could be the wrong choice for the art supplies for the background, and that's what has happened, for example, for this one. Somehow I thought this color of acrylic paint could serve as a background for a winter page, but in the end it looked so boring, so plain, and also I didn't cover it very thoroughly, so there are ugly empty areas. I definitely would have to apply second layer, so I asked myself, are you interested in this page? Do you really want to spend your precious free time on this one, or maybe you want to color something more interesting? So the answer is obvious. I abandoned it without any intention to proceed. Yes, the fault is mine. I had to be more creative in selection of art supplies here, but well, when you are not very successful on the first step, it's really difficult to push yourself to continue. There are many other backgrounds which cost me those pictures. Let me show you. Actually, this one I definitely will finish. I somehow did this watercolor underpaint just to test paper, how it behaves with watercolor. Then I was distracted and now it's already waiting for 2 years. Yes, shame on me. But this one I will finish. So not all of my abandoned works, they are abandoned forever. If one day I will finish this whole book, of course I will finish also those 2 pictures. Well, so the wrong choice of art supplies for the background. Let's continue with examples. This beauty, this rare book, but when I started this page, not this one, obviously. Sorry guys, I lost my bookmark. So when I started it, I had very limited amount of art supplies, some acrylic paint, pencils, and I wanted to cover lines. I even don't remember what has happened, maybe some clouds which I dislike. But you can see that I tried to mix couple of acrylic paints to make gradient from lighter to darker blue, and it looks awful. First, the blending was bad, colors look dirty. I didn't manage to do the nice plain opaque background. I wasn't accurate when I colored around the main image, and now it even has this thick texture, the brush strokes, I can feel them, so I even can't improve it with pencils. That's definitely was a bad planning, bad color choice, and yes, sometimes maybe if you feel that you're not skilled enough yet, you don't have enough art supplies, sometimes it's better to postpone such beautiful pictures and to color them later. Well, another reason which I had to abandon my pictures, it was lack of art supplies. That's what has happened with this one. Actually, in this beautiful book I also have several unfinished works, and This one I started. I thought that maybe it would be creative to do the Winter Queen in red instead of blue, which everyone used. But in the end, I absolutely disliked this idea. I didn't know how to proceed with the rest of colors to do the rest with blue. It somehow didn't work in my mind at all, so it's abandoned. And another one. It's my famous orchids, which I colored many years ago, and start was really good. Just need to find them. I filmed several videos and I colored everything in a row, and it was quite a long and time-consuming work. Now I am much more experienced, and I know that when I color for a long time the same page, I can be tired, and it's better for me now to do a break for a couple of days and then with new inspiration to return. Instead, when I did this one, I realized that I simply can't work anymore with all these colors. Even if roots and leaves, they looked lovely, but to do more for the castles, it was boring. And also, I didn't know what to use for the background. At that moment, I had only Prismacolors, some budget pencils, soft pastel and watercolor. Unfortunately, watercolor, it isn't possible to use it in my edition. Soft pastel, I don't like to use. And I was waiting for neo colors at the moment. I thought that, oh, well, this page, it will wait. I will get my neo color crayons. They will help me to finish it. Guess what? It's waiting already for 6 years. No words and no explanations at all. But definitely the lesson which I have learned is that if you color a huge spread, for me it's better to make a break, and then after a couple of days with new ideas, new inspiration and new patience to return. In such case, even very detailed and huge pictures, they won't be abandoned. It's not always work, because I have, for example, a couple of pictures which I started in Fragile World. The first one, it's with lemurs, where I didn't know what to do with the background. I decided that if I color only leaves, the forest will look bald and empty, so I decided to do green underpaint with watercolors, and then when I realized that I still need to color all the leaves with pencils, and for better look maybe to add more leaves between branches, I decided that I don't want to spend like 2 next weeks of my life only on the leaves. So it's still waiting. It's not totally forgotten, but I just didn't feel inspired anymore when I realized the volume of work. The same for this lovely first spread. I really was interested to do the detailed botanical part of it, but then on the last step, when I realized that I need to do pencil background, oh well, I don't think that watercolor or soft pastel would suit for this page. I can do it, but I still will be unhappy, because for me the only suitable background here could be done with pencils. And again, I can't find in myself this patience to do accurate, slow pencil background. But one day I will do it, just like Scarlet. Not today, I will think about this one the other day, like Scarlet O'Hara. So, next reason, it's when I feel that the original picture isn't very interesting for me, and with my skills, and in many areas they are really very limited, I simply can't do anything decent. I start to color, I realize that I don't like the result, I don't like the process, so it's quite easy to tell myself that I simply can switch to another picture, even in the same book, or to another book. The most sad moment in all of this is when such problem happens with the very first page which I start in the books. For example, I have this problem with Queens of Poland, beautiful book, and with this book by Diane Dufour. In Queens of Poland, where we have huge portraits, I selected probably the ugliest queen. Definitely, it's not the best idea to start from the most beautiful lady if you're not confident in your skills to do portraits. And here, it's not bad, but I don't like her face. She wasn't very beautiful since the beginning, and with my coloring skills, she started to be even less beautiful. Then I didn't like how my watercolors behaved. I had high expectations for this paper, but maybe I selected wrong paint or applied too thick layer, so something went wrong. And I realized that, well, I won't be able to do anything decent from this one. It was a good practice, but I didn't want to spend time and to continue. Definitely I will be doing another attempt in this one. But honestly, it's discouraging and it's sad when the very first page it's ruined. And now we are going to this one. That's what prompted this video, because I don't know what to do. Sometimes I quite easy can abandon page to switch without any guilt to my lovely books, but sometimes I don't know what to do with the book at all. So I wanted to do a page for our August color along with cacti and with deserts. I decided that it will be a good moment to start my one and only book by Diane Dufour. I selected these llamas, and since the very beginning I wasn't sure that style of Diane Dufour is that what I enjoy. There are many lovely and sweet pictures. I love to look at her black and white and black work without color, and I like to look at works by other colorists, but for myself there are some details which bother me. For example, here we have relatively realistic landscape, but on the foreground those childish ugly leaves, and I don't know how to turn them into something more realistic. With gouache, with pencils, they still will be on the foreground, quite visible, and other area which I really dislike, it's some lines and stains on a llama. I can't decide for myself how to color in this book. In more realistic time, spending more efforts and more time and to do realistic texture of fur, or to prefer more cartoonish style where you simply apply basic colors. You know that style which now is very popular, all those Coco Vaio books which people color with markers. Vibrant, slightly cartoonish. I love to look at the final result. Sometimes I love to look at Instagram videos how people do them, but that's not what I enjoy doing myself. So here also it was the wrong choice of art supplies. I have heard a lot of good things about this paper, and I thought that I can do a quick background with watercolor. But I was disappointed. Paints which look vibrant on other paper, here they looked quite dull. On the sky, on the grass, on the mountains, slightly dirty, dull, and not exactly what I imagined. So I colored it and I kept telling myself, so why are you spending time on this one when you can color your lovely Leon's Journey, you can color Nelko Neko, where you enjoy everything, paper, artist style, and everything else. And it's actually a very difficult question. For example, I don't know what to do with this one. For now, I totally don't want to continue that llama page because I simply don't know how to do something decent. But it's not like every time when I have some difficulties, I totally abandon page. I want to show you a couple of pictures where I managed to save projects which started with very bad beginning. This Nelko Neko page, which I did recently, my initial idea was to use a layer of paint and then to use distress oxides and stencils for the background, which would resemble the back of the playing cards, but everything went spectacularly wrong since the beginning. I didn't manage to cover background very nicely, then oxides didn't work. I didn't mask the main image successfully, so I just made those parts of the image on the sides quite dirty with oxides. But then, after I made several deep breaths, drink some coffee, I realized that no, I love this page so much that I will save it. So mostly the question, do I easily abandon it or I want to continue? It depends from how much I love the main image. And here, with another layer of opaque dark blue paint, I managed to cover all my imperfections. So now background doesn't look very creative or interesting, but at least it's not ruined. And the main image is lovely, so I consider this page as a success. Another thing I had in Paradise. I started to color this anchor with distress oxide crayons. I somehow thought that if I would apply them directly on paper and then apply water, they would behave like neocolors. Totally no. It was ugly, they didn't dissolve, and they also created some waxy stains, so it made it impossible to work over them with many other art supplies. But then I decided that, well, if it's already ruined, I can experiment. So on top I applied some watercolors. It still looked with stains and not very pleasant. Then I applied pencils. I even smoothed them with my fingers, so the texture was so thick. Then a layer of neocolors, but I used them without water, like oil pastel. So almost everything which I owned, but in the end, if you don't look very close, now this background looks nice, decent, and it complements the main image. Obviously the main image I did only when I saved the background. So it's not like I quite easily consider defeat when the first steps on the background are ugly. I try to save it. Now when I have bigger stash of art supplies, I can try various things, but that's again if I am interested in the main image. So mostly I don't feel guilty if I stop to color page, because I really value my free time and I have so many lovely books that I feel more guilty when beautiful books are laying on my shelf and I don't have time to color them. But of course it's for everyone its own reasons, so I will be happy to read in the comments what do you think about abandoning. Do you do it easy without any guilt, or you need to color since the first until the last page? Because I know many people who want to color complete books to complete them, so they color even pictures which are not very inspiring. And yes, of course, in the end, finished book will look just spectacular. Okay, so thank you for listening to my rant, because I really was disappointed when the very first page in Diane Dufour didn't finish successfully. It's a lovely book, but now I have no ideas how to proceed and which art supplies to use for it. I feel like it's similar to books by Dennis Klett, where paper is thick but where watercolor doesn't look vibrant and beautiful, so instead you need to use gouache or acrylic. Maybe for a couple of pictures here I also will try to use different art supplies, maybe neocolors. But well, it was disappointing, but I definitely intend to switch to my other books and to spend my precious time on more enjoyable colorings. Thank you, and until my next videos, I hope that my next starts will have more happy end.